My name is Brian Winter, and I'm responsible for protecting and managing grasslands that contain the remnant population of prairie chickens that Minnesota has. And so it was a natural progression for me to get involved with the Minnesota Prairie Chicken Society, and eventually I became, president of the organization. A prairie chicken is a bird in the grouse family that's roughly the size of even a barnyard chicken, a lot of people might be familiar with, or a mallard duck, or even a little smaller than a pheasant. They are very heavily barred with their feathers in terms of both males and females. They look alike if you just see them sitting in the grass with really great camouflage tans and browns and white colorations that blend into the brown grass quite well. But what really makes prairie chickens unique, I think, and make them kind of a humorous bird actually, is their display. When they gather in the spring on these booming grounds, the males have large, almost look like oranges that are attached to the side of their neck, and they inflate those. They have what look like rabbit ears, but scientifically they're called pinnae, and they're two large, distinct feathers that they erect above their head that look like rabbit ears. They drop their wings down, they fan their tail, they stomp their feet, and then they run around doing this crazy display, fighting with each other, trying to get the attention of females for the right to mate. And so they're a very colorful bird, particularly in the spring when the males are doing their best to attract a female to pass on the genes. When they're inflating those orange air sacs I talked about previously on the side of their neck, there's actually passing of the air that creates this, some people describe it like if you were to take an empty pop bottle and blow over the top, you get that kind of woo call. That's considered that's the booming sound they make. And that sound, amazingly, will carry for several miles. I do the survey for prairie chickens in the county, and I'll hear them sometimes, and then you need to try to find them and count them, and you'll think, oh, they're not too far over. I'll just take a little walk over there, and you keep going and going and going, and they wind up 1.5 miles from your vehicle because the sound carries so well. But besides that booming call that they make, they have a cackle call, which is they're just sitting there on the booming ground, just kind of repeatedly, I'm not even going to try to make it, but making this cackling sound. Within a booming ground, each male defends and they fight for the right to establish territory within the broader booming ground. So the big area is the booming ground, but then you need to think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. There's these odd-shaped pieces that belong to each male individually, and they fight. The bigger the piece of the booming ground you have, the more likely a female that comes to the booming ground will be on your territory and give you the right to mate with her if she so chooses you. And it's kind of unique in that the biggest, most dominant males, the male prairie chickens, wind up in the middle of the booming ground with the smallest territory because they have to defend it from all sides. There's a lot of prairie chickens trying to get to the middle, and research has shown that over 80% of the breeding of prairie chickens occurs in that middle zone. And then they have a whooping call, which usually is reserved for when there are actually females on the ground. So the males spend a lot of time on a booming ground by themselves. There's no females there. And they display and fight and do things that males do. But when the females show up, then they kind of whoop, 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 whoop. I think it's more of a cat call, if you will, to the female to, come over here, come to my little piece of this booming ground and, see if you like me. The people that use the blind are from all over the country and really other countries we've had in the prairie chicken blinds. And they're usually full from the 1st of April to the middle of May, which is kind of the time frame that we typically reserve the blind because that's the best time frame to ensure that you're going to see a really active display from the males. Well, I think that what the average person can do is to, one, learn more about prairie chickens and grasslands and learn what's happened, learn that history, some of which we've talked about here. But my sort of hidden agenda, I guess I would say, is that if you appreciate prairie chickens, you have to appreciate grass and grassland habitat, and thereby grassland conservation, because you cannot have prairie chickens if you don't have large blocks of grassland habitat. And so I think if people have really positive experiences and are appalled, as I am, with the thought that we may not have prairie chickens someday, that they should provide assistance through legislative efforts, through funding, through support in the community, that these grassland preserves, these grassland nature preserves, do provide a tremendous benefit. When I sit in the blind, it's amazing to me to have this primeval ceremony where these prairie chickens are gathering on this booming ground, and off at the distance, only 15 miles away, you see all the lights of Fargo-Moorhead. So you have all that civilization in the background as you're looking out the blind with these birds doing this display that they've done for thousands of years, literally tens of thousands of years, right here on the Nature Conservancy's Bluestem Prairie. And so if people want that display and those booming grounds to carry on, it's going to take support for grassland conservation. That's, I think one of the key things that is positive for the future of prairie chickens.
Funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. And by the members of Prairie Public.